Good evening once more again. Today it's our turn again to discuss unit number 6, Justice and Peace. Previous lesson we talked about justice and peace. We were able to define what is justice, and we also defined what is peace. We went further. We discussed the types of justice, where we saw a couple of types of justice. We could also discussed the cause of injustice and conflict. Even we went further, we discussed the meaning of human dignity. Just before we start our today's lesson, I would like to call in your mind this attention for a certain scenario that will take you to revise previous slides we discussed. In a certain community, leaders distributed resources unfairly, favoring their relatives. This has led to complaints, conflicts, and lack of trust among citizens. From this scenario, I would like to call each one of you to be able to identify the form of injustice shown in this situation or this scenario that I discussed or I narrated. Also, which was the effect of this situation on the community of this certain leader distributed the resources unfairly. The third one also, which ways can the community can restore justice and peace based on this scenario that I narrated. The last one, you can even state one or two values that is lacking among this leader of this certain community who was not able to distribute the resources fairly. So, just by answering these questions, you are able to be taken into through what it takes to understand the previous content we discussed. Today I would like we talk on human dignity, right and freedom. As the previous said, God created a man, a rational being, conferring on him the dignity of a person who can initiate and control his own actions. God willed that man should be left in the hand of his own counsel, so that he might of his own accord seek his Creator and freely attain his full and blessed perfection by cleaving to him. Man is rational and therefore, like God, he is created with free will and is master of all his acts. So God created all creatures, but he gave a power to a man to be able to rule, even to take decision, even to know what is good and what is wrong. As freedom is the power, that power God created a human being, especially a man and a woman, and he gave him or her a power rooted in reason and will, to act or not to act, to do this or that, so to perform deliberately actions on one's own responsibility. By free will, one shapes one's own life. So, by God giving each one of us free will, we are able to shape our own life. We are able to have our goal, our determination, and our purpose. That is, we focus to what we want to achieve. That is what God gave us. Some psychologists or even some theologians say that there is a difference between a human and Jesus Christ, the Son of God. We know the Son of God, he was able to know the will of God and to do the will of God. But we human beings who were given this free will through our discernment, through our cautious, we are not able to discover, to know, or to know what is the will of God. It is a long discernment to be able to discover it. Human freedom is a force for growth and maturity in truth and goodness. It attains its perfection when directed towards God, our beatitude. As long as freedom has not bound itself definitively to its to its ultimate good, which is God, there is this possibility of choosing between good and evil. As I've said, God has given us this power rooted in our reason and will. So we are able to choose what is good and what is evil. And thus, of growing in perfection or of failing and sinning, this freedom characterizes properly human acts. It is the basis of praise or blame, merit or reproach. The more one does what is good, the free one becomes. When you do what is good, when you are free, because your heart, your inner voice within you, what is called inner conscious, doesn't judge you or blame you, but you feel open, you feel free man or woman. There is no true freedom except in the service of what is good and just. We find true freedom when we are giving ourselves to others in good and just. When we treat others good and well, when we treat them as we would like to be treated, as we handle them as they're also the creature of God, as in them they are there to walk side by side, to be together. The choice to disobey and do evil is an abuse of freedom, leads to the slavery of sin. As God has given us the choice to do even to what is good and wrong, whenever we choose to do evil things, we are abusing the freedom given by God, which leads us to sin. We become the slavery of sin. Freedom makes man responsible for his acts to the extent that they are voluntary. What's the time we do say that, now I am a free woman, I am a free man? Why? I do what I like. Yes, that freedom God has given you to know what is wrong and what is evil. So, from your freedom, if I say that freedom with responsibility, God give us to be free, but with responsibility to know what we do and even to be responsible for what we do or how we act as human beings. Progress in virtue, knowledge of the good and access and hence the mastery of the will over its acts. Immutability and responsibility for an action can be diminished or even nullified by ignorance, inadvertence, duress, fear, habits, ordinate attachment, and other psychological or social factors. Every act directly willed is imputable to its author. Thus the Lord asked Eve after the sin in the garden, "What is this that you have done?" He asked Cain the same question. The prophet Nathan questioned David in the same way after he committed adultery with the wife of Uriah and had him murdered. An action can be indirectly voluntary when it is results from negligence. Here, what we want to say is that an action you can do as a human being, it can be indirectly, voluntarily, when its results is from the negligence regarding something one should have known or done. For example, an accident arising from ignorance of traffic laws. We talk also good governance, democracy, rule and law, access to justice as indicators to peace and justice. As I have said, what the indicators, one of the indicators of peace and justice is because there is laws. There is laws and laws to follow, to guide. So the government it become good governance or democracy when they follow the rules and laws, when they offer justice. And we remember that we can't have a social peace when we don't have inner peace. Because inner peace is the beginning, is the source of social peace. If you are in society don't have your peace, inner peace, even people around you, surrounding you will not have peace. Good governance refers to the common good of all people, either as groups or individuals. Good governance wishes and intends to remain at the service of the human being at every level in order to attain the good of all people and of the whole person. Catechism of the Catholic Church, number 165, states that good governance always, which even remains in the service of human being at every level, in order to attain the good of all people. So where you find the good governance, you will find it is in the service of people. Once an author in Nigeria said, the man of people, Chinua Achebe, that you act for the good common of society, of the people. Good governance has 8 major characteristics. Therefore, if we talk about good governance, we should have in mind these 8 measures for characteristic. It is participatory. In good governance, everybody participates. There is consensus oriented. People agree, go together. They find common way to go. They are accountable. If a good governance is when people are accountable, what usually our excellence used to say, kubazwi shingano. Transparency. You also be transparency or accountability in whatever you do. You are sure account. If you are given responsibility, be able to present responsibility, to present outcomes. They put inputs, but outputs should be open to everybody. The responsible people become responsible to know what to do and how and when. Effective and efficient. The resources should be effective and efficient, equitable and inclusive. Everybody goes in and follows the rule of law. Effective, good governance is responsive to the present and future needs of the organization, exercise prudence in policy setting and decision making, and thus the best interests of all stakeholders are taken into account. In this slide, we should know that the characteristics of good governance or democracy or rules and laws, access to justice and get us to peace, we have 8 major characteristics of good governance. Number 1, we have saw it is participatory, consensus oriented. Number 3, accountable. Number 4, transparent. Number 5, responsive. Number 6, effective and efficient. Number 8, equitable and inclusive. Those are 8 measures or 8 measures characteristic that can be characteristic of a good governance. You should know this, there are 8. And even if you meet a question asking what are the major characteristics of good governance, be able to answer this question. Rule of law. Good governance requires fair legal frameworks that are enforced by an impartial regulatory body for the full protection of stakeholders. That good governance should also have a rule of law. People are they following the rules and laws established, terms and conditions. Should be also transparent. People to be able to present what they have been asked to do. Transparency means that information should be provided in a easily understandable forms and media, that it should be free, available and directly accessible to those who will be affected by governance, policies and practices, as well as the outcomes resulting therefrom. And that any decision taken and their enforcement are in compliance with established rules and regulations. Also, good governance should have a responsiveness. That I said responsiveness. Good governance requires that organizations and their processes are designed to serve the best interests of stakeholders within a reasonable time frame. That's why usually we have what we used to call Mihigo, to know that at each mandate, everybody is responsible to show where did he take, or where did she take people, where did she take people from A to point A to B? Was any improvement? Was any life being? Consensus oriented good governance requires consultation to understand the different interests of stakeholders. Sometimes we see the leaders coming on the field to acquire information, to listen to people. What we call in Kinyarwanda abagenerwabikorwa. People comes down to understand what people talk about this program, which is going to be into their services. We talk equity and inclusiveness. The organization that provides the opportunity for its stakeholders to maintain, enhance, or generally improve their well-being provides the most compelling measures regarding its reason for existence and values to society. The next is effectiveness and efficiency. Number 7. Good governance means that the processes implemented by the organization to produce favorable results meet the needs of its stakeholders while making the best use of resources, human, technology, financial, natural, and environment at its disposal. So people, you put human capital, technology, financial, natural, and environment in the disposal of human society at large. Accountability. Accountability is the key tenet of good governance, who is accountable for what should be documented in policy statements. In general, an organization is accountable to those who will be affected by its decisions or actions, either indirect or direct, as well as the applicable rules of law. So, accountability, as you say, that this good governance should be accountable to resources received to be used for the better or the good common. Participation. Participation by both men and women, either direct or through legitimate representatives, is a key cornerstone of good governance. Participation needs to be informed and organized, including freedom of expression and a serious concern for the best interests of the organization and the society in general. We talk about the decentralization. There are two terms you should understand here when we talk about centralization and decentralization. These are two content or two words that the one is opposed to the other. When we talk about decentralization, just to share responsibilities. You give people responsibilities to be able, if you are not there, the services or the program or the organization should run smoothly, even the institution. Since 2000, Rwanda embarked on the process of decentralization with the aim of involving citizens considered as main actors in poverty reduction and economic growth. The type of decentralization adopted by Rwanda was built on a number of rich cultural practices with the intent of building a citizen-centered governance. Various programs to empower local populations were implemented. The expected result was to have citizens who are able to manage their socio-economic development process. The expected result was to have citizens who are able to manage their socio-economic development process through participation in the identification of their priorities, implementation of development projects, as well as holding accountable for local authorities. As I have said, the Rwanda did decentralization of the services. Even we take like Irembo service today, what we are getting in Irembo, we used to go even to capital city to ask this service, but the service are decentralized to our local villages so that we are able to access free services. Democracy is a system of government by the whole population or all the eligible members of the state, typically through elected representatives. Direct democracy or pure democracy is a form of democracy in which people decide on policy initiatives directly. People contribute cyangwa se bashyiramo uruhare, abagenerwabikorwa nabo bakagira uruhare mu bibakorerwa ndetse izabakorerwa. That's why the secular, the pure democracy gives the population, or hear the population, the voice of population, and then put into practice what society desires. This differs from the majority of current established democracies, which are representative democracies. Democracy is not something we get without effort. That's what means each democracy. It's not just something we get without putting our much effort. We know some countries have been fighting, just fighting for democracy. From the colonial, people fighting for democracy, where people will have voice in what is done for them, ibibakorerwa bigiremo ijambo. We must always fight for democracy, otherwise we lose it. We always should safeguard that democracy. If we don't safeguard democracy, we have attained, we shall lose it. Acquiring democracy is a slow and long process. It is not acquired at once. It is built over several generations. All the stakeholders, particularly the politicians, the civil society, and the people in general, have a role to play every day over a long period. Either you are an authority or a civilian, you have a role to play in order to safeguard democracy. Since its independence, the political speeches of the Rwandan politicians and the international community insist on the need to set up an appropriate democracy system to solve governance problems in Rwanda. That's why we usually in Rwanda we find this program, Rwanda Day, even we find the Rwanda Talk. Previous, even you have what we call, there is previous program, it was is just in all the country level, just umushyikirano, where people, the authorities, listens or pay attention to the issue, to the problem the citizens are facing. Since its independence, Rwanda has tried its best to safeguard, to maintain this democracy. Half of a century has gone by without any noticeable satisfactory improvement of the situation, or the regimes claimed always that they were democratic. However, then today, each regime or each government proclaims that it has have democracy. Each government has its own democracy. That's why, up to today, each one is claiming to have a better democracy than the other countries, or the regimes as they have been claiming it. US side recognizes that long-term sustainable development is closely linked to sound democratic governance and the protection of human rights. We view the democracy, human rights, and governance sector not in isolation but as a critical framework in which all aspects of development must advance together. Just recall in mind that in UNIT6, peace and justice, also we talk about good governance, because where there is justice, there is peace. Where there is no peace, there is no justice. And we can't have social peace when we don't have inner peace. So even we have 8 major characteristics of good governance. We saw them. I can even repeat 1 or 2. The rest also have it. We say equitable, accountability, transparency, and so on. So today, allow me to stop here. See you the next time.